Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the MaffmanJones movie show. There's no news, so I'm just gonna. I know this. You see the runtime of this video, but I'm just gonna put like a giant black bar for another 15, 20 minutes and just end it. Nah, in what world would that happen? So Sony and Disney are having trouble, and that involves poor little Spider-Man. Poor Spider-Man. You have some people who are mad at one studio, people who are mad at the other studio, people who are coming to the defense of the MCU, people showing their true colors as they always do, and the internet is ablaze, and it's really terrifying how people care about this more than the Amazon fires. Yeah. We live in a world where people will sign a petition and actually go out and boycott Sony at their studio, at their doorstep, and make an effort to do that, but they won't click a couple times to donate $2 or $3 to organizations for the Amazon, which is an ecosystem, trees, animal life, a lot of things that we need in this world if we want to keep on persevering and living. Just breathing. Yeah, before we get to the big news story that's been ongoing and developing over the past week, moving into last week, I was going to make a video initially, but I knew people these days on the internet, when something comes out, it's just automatic opinion. Yes, no, wah. And sometimes not sometimes, but all the time, it's important to evaluate, assess, and have some patience in just letting things sink in for a moment and forming a proper opinion. Not just going out the gate and just having something red light, green light. Sony and Disney, they had a whole thing going on, but we'll get to that. First, though, I want to talk about a couple other news stories, a couple of ones that I'm really excited about. But we'll get the first one out of the way that I'm not crazy about, but I'm not a big Bond guy, and it's No Time to Die. It's the new title for the new James Bond movie directed by Cary Fukunaga, who I'm a really big fan of. Spectre was completely forgettable, and I really liked Skyfall. I own that movie. Casino Royale's great, too. And can you believe that we've had Daniel Craig as Bond for 13 years, going on 14 when the next movie comes out? That's a long time. This movie's notorious for its problems, but hopefully what's going on with this movie behind the scenes transforms into something that's worth seeing in theaters and worth enjoying if you're a Bond fan. So I'm excited for people because it feels like the font of the title, the retro feeling of the title, it gives people a sense of possibly the tone of the movie that they're going to see. That yes, this is more the Bond you know and love, but also it's a grounded Daniel Craig too, so you're getting a mix of both of them and getting more of Q, more of the gadgets, more of the car, all that stuff. So we'll see. Speaking of No Time to Die, people are probably going to die in this other movie that nobody's really talking about, but it might be coming out next year in like March or February. Directed by Scott Cooper, who directed movies like Out of the Furnace and Hostiles. It's called Antlers. It's based on a short story. It's produced by Guillermo del Toro. We don't know what it is, really. It could be Wendigos, but it could be its own thing. You get a couple little glimpses of the big creatures, the monsters in this movie. It stars Kerry Russell. And yeah, it's based on a short story about this teacher in this remote town, and she tries to help this young kid who's having problems at home. And it turns out these problems at home are bigger than just daddy issues or abandonment issues, stuff like that. There's a lot more sinister things going on, a little more creepy, and now our main character is in danger because something else is lurking out there. And this trailer does a really good job of portraying that dread. And if you've seen Scott Cooper's previous work as a filmmaker, he likes to just rip your heart out. So I'm assuming that's what's going to happen here. But I'm excited for a mainstream horror movie coming out that actually looks really good. And this movie took me by surprise because I never heard of it before. I never heard of the short story. I read the short story in its full. I read it really late, and I had trouble sleeping that night. So I'm just wanted to put the word out there to love for this movie, Antlers. If you haven't watched the trailer, go ahead and watch it. I'll link it down below. Antlers, you can argue that antlers are on a deer. But can you find antlers in the Matrix? Segueing is not my specialty. We're getting a fourth Matrix, starring Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Neo and Trinity, directed by Lana Wachowski. Lily is not coming back for whatever reason. Though the Wachowski sisters before they became trans, after they were trans, they've done everything together, and now it's not the case. We don't know why. It could be for a very harmless, innocuous reason. It could be for an actual reason that's going on with family problems, maybe. Maybe they had an argument over it. Maybe it's just, I'm interested in making this movie and you're not, so just hang out, do your own thing, live your life. And I'm excited because, first of all, the Matrix sequels weren't that good, but I still enjoy them for what they are. The first movie is incredible. I'm seeing it in theaters in a couple weeks in AMC Theater in the city, and I'm Dolby Theater, and I'm stoked. I am so excited. I haven't watched it from beginning to end in a while, so to see it in the theater for the first time has me really excited. But the potential of the Matrix, everything being on a computer essentially, is that you could really recode and reboot and do anything with this franchise, especially after the end of the last movie, Matrix Resolutions. I just called that third film Matrix Resolutions like we're solving a math problem. You have the real world in Zion, and some of these characters aren't around anymore, but then other characters are part of the Matrix, and you could literally just bring anybody back, do anything you want, and make up a story for why characters are coming back, and it would make sense in this regard. I'm not going to go into the whole minutia of why, but if you've seen the Matrix, you understand that there's a lot going on. There's a lot of story. Apparently, the story of Neo the One and this war, it's gone on and occurred and transpired 6 times. So it's a cycle. It's a process and a cycle. So they could just repeat that cycle again and find a reason why it's happening again, and maybe it's the last time and they have to come back. Or maybe you have these new characters with Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss, and they're going to have to find a way to stop it. Maybe you don't have Agent Smith anymore, which I'm sure maybe they will be, maybe there won't be. They'll have a new antagonist, who knows? But you could literally create anything with this, and I just think potentially visually and from a storytelling perspective, there's a lot of fun that could be had here. And if I was working on this movie, I would be so happy because it's an opportunity to flex your creative muscles in the sense that we're living in a world where the Matrix is always going to be relevant right now. Back in 99, now computers and technology and the internet are more relevant now than ever because all the themes of the Matrix 1 apply now, but you could emphasize and really just do a lot more with that in this new 4th installment. So I'm really excited, potentially. It could suck too. I'm not saying it's not going to be, I'm not saying it's definitely going to be a good movie. Obviously, you're not going to know until you see that movie in the theater. It's cool to see another Matrix movie coming out. It's been in development, ideas being tossed around for a long time, and now it's actually happening. And now let's move on to the big story of the week. Because The Matrix delves into the horrors of the internet, we have another horror of the internet, fanboys, reacting to the Disney, Sony, Spider-Man deal that just couldn't pull through. So, a lot of information was coming out the gate, and the fact that this got leaked out at all, people are suggesting that Disney spilled the beans out into the public via the press to get people turning and tossing and going crazy, just to have people turn their back on Sony again and be like, why are you giving up this character? He's been doing so well with Disney. Why would you do this, Sony? Why? But Disney is not innocent. Sony's not innocent either. These are $1 billion companies trying to retain the rights of a character that will make them more money, essentially. And yeah, people love Spider-Man, but these things aren't going to happen. It was a finite contract that they had to renegotiate, and it fell through. But Disney has been this conglomerate, this monster in a way, if you will, just devouring studio after studio, license after license, company after company, just taking everything. Disney Plus is a giant flex, showing an example of that, of how much they've acquired over the years already. And with all the content, it seems like they're putting out good content with what they're developing, but just the fact that they own all this stuff is, in a way, terrifying. So, over the course of the last, they've been probably developing this contract for a while. We don't know how long. Originally, when Disney shared the rights for Spider-Man with Sony, they had all the merchandising rights with Marvel and all that, but they were getting 5% of the gross of the box office for the movies that are coming out, like Civil War and Homecoming, this Even Far From Home, which was the biggest Spider-Man movie that's come out under Sony's belt. But they wanted 50-50. They wanted 50%. They wanted to cut half and half. And I'm not going to do the math. I enjoy math. But essentially, if Sony's getting 50% of the cut of the box office, but no merchandising rights, Disney wins there, and Sony is losing money in a way. And they want to retain their rights to being an independent studio. And I get that. I understand that. Apparently, Tom Rothman, who's the head of Sony, offered alternative deals. He was willing to go as low as 25-30%, and Disney was just like, haha, no. Oh, no way. We want more money. Not less. We're making more money that way, but it's not enough for us, because we want everything. Oh. But yeah. So essentially, now that this deal is apparently officially cut off, I thought maybe it would be renegotiated. It's only been a week. It can be it could be renegotiated in time. It's a different situation, but the whole James Gunn thing, him not directing Guardians 3, was a big deal too, and then after a few months, it got resolved. They fixed the problem. Disney realized their mistakes and hired him back on, even though he's making Suicide Squad 2, or The Suicide Squad, first. So, maybe one day, they'll come back to a meeting, and both Disney and Sony will discuss future, like, listen, we messed up here, let's come to an agreement, because people love this character so much, and yes, they love the character, which we don't care because we just want the money, but we can get more money if we just find a way to make this work. But this all means that Kevin Feige is no longer producing on these movies, so he's not there to like give advice for the story and develop the story and how it leans into the MCU. This also means that you can't have any MCU connections. You can't talk about all Peter Parker of what he's experienced over the past few movies. Him literally dying. Him literally looking up to Tony Stark like he's a father figure, because he was to him. No, you didn't get a direct mention of Uncle Ben yet in this entire MCU thing. But I've come to just accept and learn and understand that this isn't that kind of Spider-Man. They made a new Spider-Man character for this particular MCU franchise, and it's just there are different interpretations and iterations of the Spider-Man character, and this is just another one. So if you don't like it, you always have your Andrew Garfield, if you like that one, or if Tobey Maguire, if you like that iteration, or the comics, TV shows, whatever, animation, you have Spider-Verse, you have all these iterations of the character to fall back on. So if you don't like this one, tough shit, there's plenty of other iterations to fall back on and fall in love with, in my opinion. So now, this isn't a big deal to me. We have so much Spider-Man out there, so much Spider-Man content out there, that I can't be mad. We had him for 4 years. Well, technically, starting in 2016 with Civil War and ending with Far From Home in 2019. Like 2016, 17, 18, 19, technically 3 years, but if you count the whole year, it's 4. So that's my math there. But apparently, also, we're supposed to get 2 more films with Holland and John Watts directing. John Watts directed the first 2 MCU Spider-Man movies. And then the parting will officially commence afterwards, if they continue to move on without Holland or still with Holland. Yeah, but again, so I'm not mad about the situation because I knew it was going to happen eventually. It would be nice to have Tom Holland in the MCU for 10, 15 years, whatever it would be. Just have him grow in real life and as a character in these films. But when you have a contract between 2 studios that are out for their own best interests, there's gonna be clashes, there's gonna be arguments and altercations at some points. I wouldn't call this a malicious altercation, but there's definitely a showing sign of the greed and the ego here of both studios. But I fall more on Sony's side because if I'm an independent studio and I want to keep thriving as a studio, I want to make sure that I have what I need to keep making money and making profits so I can keep making these movies and keep, doing what I want to do. And to do that, going 50-50 with the biggest company in the world doesn't seem to fly. But it wasn't like Sony walked away and was like, no. They came back with alternative options. Listen, okay, we're not going to go 50-50, but we are willing to go as low or as high as this. So you still got the merchandise rights, but you can get 25-30% too. And Disney decided to go, no, we want what we want or nothing. And that's ridiculous, but that's how it goes sometimes. We're not in these rooms. We're not a fly on the wall. We don't know what's really going on. Essentially, we got details, but it's all details. There could be more going on, obviously, that we're not hearing. We can just observe, take in, evaluate, and assess, like I mentioned before, and then form our own opinions on it. But I've seen so many takes on social media about this situation, and a lot of them do come to the defense of Disney. You have a right to choose a side, even though I think it's kind of strange to choose a side, because these studios don't care about you. They only care about themselves in the end. But I think there's not enough information. We don't know these companies. We're not part of the company. We can't truly choose a side. We can just form our own opinions like, listen, I don't agree with Sony or I don't agree with Disney, and that's that. But to say that one studio is bad or Sony is evil, they want their character back, they're going to make bad movies now, or at Disney, they're going to keep making mediocre movies. Now you're taking your opinion and making it seem like not a fact, but you're making it more important and righteous than it actually is. Self-righteous than it actually is. And it's silly. I'm not going to call anybody out on that because that's just not how I am, but I just think it's ridiculous. And we live in a world now where people feel like they have to be validated by their own opinions. So everything they say on the internet and Twitter, if it gets a lot of retweets, a lot of likes, a lot of follows, then suddenly they feel like they can keep doing that and just keep throwing out stupid bullshit opinions because it's going to get them attention. The fact that it's happening now, just also fast, it happened right before D23 too, which I'll talk about really quick right after this. It's crazy. It's a blazing fire. I was never a big fan of the way these movies were so integrated into the MCU because I think it took away from the character of Spider-Man. I love the first couple Peter Parker, Tobey Maguire movies because they were just straight up Spider-Man movies and they had their own style with Sam Raimi and they had a sense of adventure and emotion and all that, and they were really, they're dated, but they're, I think, the best movies we've ever gotten with this character because they had the essence of the character in heart and also told really fantastical, wild stories with over-the-top acting that worked because of Sam Raimi's directing and all that. But that's just me. I think Sony has potential to make really cool movies on their own with Tom Holland because they don't have to have the MCU weighing them down. You can argue the MCU is not weighing them down, but there's more room to tell personal Peter Parker stories without having to involve other characters like a Nick Fury or a Tony Stark or a Maria Hill or anybody, really. You could just have your own villains and your own Peter Parker and your own Spider-Man just in New York City, personal struggles, problems, and all that. That's what I love about the character. So if we get back to that, I don't think it's reverting. I think it's a better evolution for what people care, for the stories people care about with this character particularly. So, and also apparently there were talks, I don't know if it's true, that they were planning on making this third MCU Spider-Man movie the most personal Peter Parker story. You could have done that with the first two movies. If that's true, it's too little too late. But I think it's silly that they now in our third movie, we're going to really delve into Peter Parker's personal struggles with his relationships and his family life and all that. You had the first two movies to do that. You could have done that this whole entire time, but you chose not to. This has been a long video already, but D23 happened this weekend. I'll be talking all about Rise of Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Mandalorian on the Star Wars show, which you can find on my channel on Tuesdays and later in the week after the MaffmanJones movie show. I'll put a link to it down below also if it helps you. So I'm not going to talk about that, but there was a lot that came out for the Disney Plus streaming service. And overall, I mean, with to keep everything in a tightly knit statement, lots of content, lots of exciting things. I'm going to give Disney my money. But like all these, like Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, Miss She-Hulk, you got Wanda, they showed more from WandaVision, the Black Widow movie that's coming out next year. Like all these other, and all these like High School Musical, the musical series show, Phineas and Ferb, like the Lizzie McGuire's coming back. There's got all this stuff coming out, and it looks like there's going to be something for everybody. So if you're a fan of one thing, you're going to have it on there. Lady and the Tramp remake, I'm not a fan of it, but there are families that are going to watch this and probably really enjoy it. I may enjoy it too, but it's not, I don't think that's really for me. I've been recording for a half hour, but this may be a little shorter than that because editing is magical. But now that we have come to the end of today's episode, please subscribe if you haven't, ring that bell so you'll always be notified of a new show for this and the Star Wars show, which will be coming out tomorrow. And let me know down below what you think of the D23 news of the Sony and Marvel deal. Do you agree with what I said? Have you chosen the side already? What do you feel about this? Are you excited for a post non-agreement Spider-Man world again with Sony with full control, or do you prefer that things were going the way they were and they kept going? And then the Matrix 4, the Bond news, and Antlers movie. I implore you to go watch the Antlers trailer, unless you're really squeamish and these movies, like horror movies, just don't jive with you. But otherwise, if you're interested in horror movies, I highly implore you check this out, because it could be potentially a really, really stellar horror movie that really gets under people's skins. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for getting this far. If you're still here, I love you all. Once again, I'm John Maffio, and I have a sneakerhead problem. I want to buy all the sneakers in the world, but I have no money to, so I just look at subreddits every day, looking at people taking pictures of their own shoes and going, oh, that would be a cool pair of kicks to have, but they cost $400. Well, that would be cool, but that costs $800. And then every so often I'll buy new kicks for $150, $200, and I'll wonder to myself, why? 2 years ago, I didn't give two craps about what kind of sneakers I wore out on a daily basis. Now, it's a big deal. I don't know where that shift happened. I don't know who flipped a switch in my brain, but it's an addiction. Yeah, I guess it could be worse. I could be shooting heroin, so we all have our vices. We'll see. What a weird way to end the show. I'll see you guys later. Deuces.